Before granite countertops and open floor plans, before stainless steel and smart homes, there was another kind of beauty, quieter, sturdier, built by hand and heart. The old houses didn't just shelter families. They spoke, in the creak of their stairs, the scent of pine and plaster, the weight of doors that closed with dignity. Every corner told a story, every detail had a reason. These are the details we've forgotten, and the memories they left behind. 1. Transom windows, small windows above doors, once breathed life into homes long before air conditioning existed. They let breeze and light drift through narrow hallways, carrying with them the scent of rain and Sunday bread. At night, their glass caught lamplight like jewelry, glimmering softly in the quiet. In those days, a home was designed to work with nature, not against it. Today, transom windows are little more than decoration, relics of elegance. But once, they were small miracles of ventilation and grace, turning architecture into poetry. 2. Skeleton keyholes. Before there were digital locks, passwords, or keypads, there was the satisfying turn of a skeleton key. Each one was unique, a slightly imperfect creation, handmade to fit a single door. Children would peer through those narrow keyholes to watch life unfold on the other side. The flicker of candlelight, the murmur of laughter, the whisper of family secrets. Those keys didn't just open rooms, they opened time itself. In that small, metallic twist was the feeling of privacy, mystery, and belonging that modern locks can never replicate. 3. Plaster walls. Old houses didn't have drywall. They had plaster, thick and cool, mixed from lime, sand, and horsehair. When sunlight hit them, they glowed unevenly, like human skin. Each imperfection gave them warmth and depth. Over the years, they cracked gracefully, not from neglect, but from living. The sound they muffled, the memories they absorbed, all became part of the structure. Every patch, every nail mark, every repaint told a story. Those walls didn't just enclose a family, they remembered one. 4. Pocket doors. There was a quiet magic to the pocket door, a solid wooden panel that vanished into the wall with a smooth, graceful slide. Victorian carpenters designed them not only to save space, but to create transitions, from chatter to calm, from public to private. You could close off a parlor with a single motion, and suddenly the house felt still, intimate, almost ceremonial. They didn't just divide rooms, they orchestrated moods. Today, we have open floor plans, but we've lost that delicate balance between togetherness and solitude. 5. Radiator heat. Before central heating and vents, warmth came from cast iron radiators that hissed and hummed like living creatures. Their pipes clanged awake on winter mornings, singing the promise of comfort. Children dried mittens on them, cats curled beside them, and the air filled with the faint scent of iron and steam. That steady rhythm, soft, metallic, and reassuring, became the heartbeat of the home. The sound wasn't noise, it was life itself, echoing through every quiet, frost-bitten morning. 6. Built-in cabinets. Built-ins were more than storage. They were trust in wood and craft. Every cabinet was made to fit that exact wall for that exact family, its joints precise, its shelves sturdy. Behind the glass, china gleamed, heirlooms carried across oceans, guarded by generations. Over time, the wood bowed gently under the weight of years, but never broke. These weren't pieces of furniture. They were part of the home's bones. You didn't move them when you left. You left a part of yourself behind in them. 7. Picture rails. Along the upper edge of plastered walls ran a narrow strip of molding, the picture rail. It allowed families to hang art, portraits, and photographs without hammering nails into fragile plaster. But it was more than a convenience. It was an invitation, a reminder that beauty belonged in everyday life. People changed their walls as they changed their stories. A wedding portrait one year, a newborn's photograph the next. That rail wasn't just trim, it was continuity, a timeline running just below the ceiling. 8. Clawfoot tubs. The clawfoot tub stood in quiet dignity. White porcelain, curved, and impossibly heavy. Its weight grounded the room, its shine reflected candlelight, and its chipped edges told stories of decades gone by. To bathe in one was an experience, not a routine. Steam fogged the window, water lapped against porcelain, and time itself seemed to slow. People soaked to think, to dream, to heal. The clawfoot tub wasn't just plumbing, it was therapy, solitude, and ceremony combined. A place where the day ended and the soul exhaled. 9. Coal chutes. At the side of many old homes, close to the ground, a small iron door still rusts in silence. Most people pass it without knowing what it was. A coal chute, a relic of another century. Back when warmth came not from switches or thermostats, but from the steady labor of fire, coalmen would arrive before dawn, their carts creaking down frosty streets. They'd lift that door and shovel black diamonds into the dark, each thud echoing through the basement like thunder. Children would watch from windows, wide-eyed, as clouds of coal dust rose and drifted like smoke. The chute led straight to the furnace, the house's lungs, where the coal burned red and alive, feeding heat into every pipe and room above. Parents warned their kids not to play near it, but the sound of that shovel, heavy, rhythmic, promising warmth on cold mornings, never left their memory. It was the sound of survival in winter, the heartbeat of a home before electricity made warmth invisible. 10. Stained glass windows. When the morning sun slipped through stained glass windows, the floor of an old house turned into a cathedral. Ruby, amber, sapphire, light transformed into color, color transformed into calm. Even the humblest homes often had a small panel of it near the stairwell or front door. It wasn't about luxury, it was about joy. These windows caught the first light of dawn and turned it into something worth pausing for. Children would trace the colored shapes on the floor, pretending to catch the rainbow in their palms. In the evening, as the sun set, the colors softened. Gold turned to honey, blue to smoke, and the whole house seemed to sigh. Each window was a small sermon in glass, preaching beauty in the ordinary, reminding families that even the simplest light could feel sacred. Today, they survive mostly in churches and heritage homes, but once, they were how everyday people brought a little holiness into their hallways. 11. Newel posts. At the foot of every staircase stood a newel post, carved, sturdy, eternal. It wasn't just architecture, it was an anchor. Made of oak or mahogany, it bore the fingerprints of everyone who ever lived there. Children sliding down banisters would grip it for balance. Brides would rest their hand upon it on the way down, and old men would lean against it to catch their breath. Over time, the varnish wore thin where fingers had polished it smooth, proof of years of touch, laughter, and motion. The newel post didn't move, but it witnessed everything. Christmas mornings, late-night returns, the sound of footsteps that grew heavier or lighter depending on the year. In many houses, it was the first thing you touched when you came home, the last thing you saw when you left. It stood there, patient, silent, familiar, as if the whole staircase leaned on its strength. In an age before open-concept living erased such details, the newel post was a handshake from the past. 12. Dutch doors. Half open, half closed. The Dutch door was the perfect compromise between hospitality and caution. Its top could swing wide to let in sunlight, conversation, and the scent of lilacs from the garden, while the bottom stayed firm to keep children and chickens from wandering out. In rural America and small towns alike, these doors were social bridges. Neighbors leaned on them to gossip, mothers passed fresh-baked pies through them, and fathers wiped their hands before unlatching the bottom half to come inside for supper. There was something inherently human about their design, practical, friendly, honest. They said, without words, "You're welcome here, but mind your manners." In summer, they invited breeze and chatter. In winter, they guarded warmth and secrets. Long before doorbells and peepholes, the Dutch door taught people how to connect, half open, half private, fully alive. 13. Brass mail slots. Once upon a time, the sound of connection wasn't a ping or a buzz. It was the soft chime of mail sliding through a brass slot. Each letter made a faint, dignified clang as it hit the floor. Bills, postcards, love letters, Christmas cards, all carrying the world in paper form. The slot itself gleamed like a badge of pride, polished by years of fingertips and rain. You didn't have to step outside to feel part of something larger. The world came to you, one envelope at a time. Children waited by the door for birthday cards from faraway grandparents. Sweethearts watched for handwriting they knew by heart. The mail slot wasn't just hardware, it was hope, trust, and communication built into the wall. Today, we tap screens and refresh inboxes, but there was a time when every knock of the mailman and every flutter of paper on the floor felt like proof that someone remembered you. 14. Crown molding. Where the ceiling met the wall, old houses often wore a crown, not for necessity, but for pride. Crown molding was the mark of care, a craftsman's flourish that served no purpose except to say, "Someone built this with love." Each curve and groove was carved by hand, never perfect, never identical. It caught shadows in the afternoon and glowed like sculpture in the lamplight. When you looked up, you felt it. That sense of finish, of completeness, of thoughtfulness. It framed every room like a signature. In the quiet hours when the house was still, the molding seemed to hold the space together, elegant and humble all at once. Today, machines can replicate it, but they can't replicate its soul. The small imperfections, the uneven paint, the faint brush of a craftsman's thumb along the edge. Crown molding was the final line in a love letter from builder to home, a reminder that beauty once lived in the details we no longer see. 15. Hardwood floors. They weren't engineered, laminated, or polished into lifeless perfection. They were real. Solid oak, maple, or pine, cut by hand and nailed plank by plank. With patience that builders once considered a virtue. You could feel their weight, the quiet sturdiness underfoot, the faint warmth that rose through them in winter. They creaked not because they were flawed, but because they were honest, wood breathing beneath your steps. Each board aged differently, stained by time and light, marked by generations of footsteps. Children running in socks, parents pacing in thought, dogs settling by the hearth. Every sound left an imprint. Over the years, those floors became diaries written in scuffs and scratches, the ink made of living. They didn't just hold furniture and feet. They held rhythm, the heartbeat of the home, the echo of those who once called it theirs. 16. Attic fans. Before the quiet hum of air conditioners, there was the low, steady roar of attic fans, great spinning giants tucked beneath the rafters. When summer pressed heavy on the house, someone would pull the chain and the fan would awaken like a beast, pulling hot air upward and out through the roof. The shutters clapped, the curtains swayed, and at last, the air began to move. The sound became part of summer itself. that deep mechanical purr that promised relief after long, humid days. Families would sit near open windows as the fan drew in the night breeze, cool and dusty with the scent of grass and rain. You could feel the temperature drop, but more than that, you could hear the house sigh with relief. Attic fans didn't just cool a home, they calmed it, turning swelter into stillness and making July nights bearable, even beautiful. 17. Wavy glass windows. Look through one, and you'd think the world was dreaming. The glass wasn't flat, it rippled, bending light in a soft, liquid shimmer. These weren't imperfections, they were fingerprints of an era before automation. When glass was hand-poured and stretched, it cooled unevenly, freezing motion into every pane. Through those waves, the outside world seemed gentler. Sunsets looked slower, trees swayed like ghosts, and rain didn't fall. It danced. Children pressed their faces against it, watching colors distort and shift, unaware that they were staring through history. In winter, frost would lace its edges like lace embroidery. In summer, dust caught the sunlight like gold. Each window pane carried decades of weather, reflection, and breath. Modern glass is clearer, stronger, more efficient, but it's also silent. The old wavy glass spoke softly, reminding us that imperfection can make the world more beautiful. 18. Doorbells with chimes. Once upon a time, when someone came calling, the house didn't buzz or beep, it sang. Inside the entryway hung a slim wooden box or a set of polished metal tubes, and when you pressed the button outside, they rang like music. Each house had its own melody, 2 chimes for some, 3 for others, each one distinct as a voice. That sound marked arrivals and reunions, moments of excitement and surprise. Children would race to the door before the final note faded. There was dignity in that chime, warmth, even anticipation. Visitors weren't notifications, they were events. Over the years, the tubes gathered dust, their sound fading into memory. Today's digital tones can't match the resonance of those old doorbells, the echo that lingered in the hall long after the door opened. It was more than sound. It was a greeting from the house itself, whispering, "Someone's here." 19. Porches with swings. Before screens took over our evenings and privacy walls fenced off our lives, there was the front porch, the living room of the street. The porch swing, hanging from its sturdy chains, became the center of small-town theater. You waved to neighbors passing by, traded gossip over iced tea, watched thunderheads roll across the horizon. It was where children learned to listen. Lovers talked until the stars came out, and old men measured time in the slow rhythm of a creaking chain. The air smelled of lilac and rain, the boards beneath your feet warm from the day's sun. There was no rush, no distraction, only the sound of crickets, the hum of distant cars, and the soft sway of shared silence. A porch swing wasn't furniture, it was communion. It held not just people, but connection, a reminder that belonging once started right at the front steps. 20. Root cellars. Beneath the house, past the squeak of a wooden door and down a flight of narrow steps, waited the root cellar, cool, damp, and eternal. The air smelled of earth and stone, of apples stored in straw, of potatoes resting in the dark. Here, jars lined the shelves, peaches sealed in syrup, tomatoes preserved from summer, pickles floating like green lanterns in glass. The cellar wasn't just storage, it was survival. Families went down with baskets and came up with sustenance, each trip a quaint act of gratitude. During storms, children hid there. During hard winters, it became the pantry of hope. The temperature never wavered, the silence never broke. You could almost hear the slow ticking of time itself in the drip of condensation. In that darkness, food waited, preserved by patience and planning. The root cellar was the house's heart, steady, humble, and full of life sleeping through the cold. These weren't just architectural details, they were the soul of old homes. Each piece had purpose, personality, and patience built into it. The people who lived among them didn't talk about design trends. They talked about craftsmanship, durability, belonging. We replace character with convenience, but deep down, we still miss the whisper of radiators, the glow of stained glass, the squeak of floors that remembered us. Because the story of every old house is the same. They were built not for profit, but for permanence. And in every forgotten detail lies the reminder that home was once something you made with your hands and kept with your heart.